The entire team at the Emsolation podcast acknowledges the traditional custodians and cultures of the lands and seas on which we live and work. We pay our respects to all First Nations peoples, elders and ancestors. We acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded and stand in solidarity towards a shared future. I personally want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I record this podcast every week, the Wurundjeri people. I recognise their continued connection to the land and waters of this beautiful place I call home. Always was, always will be.
This is the Emsolation Summer Series.
Brax was like the number 2 most popular name in Australia for 1 year.
With Stephen Peacocke.
Would you say it was more or less of an acting challenge than the dance sequences in season 1?
Oh, come on. Mate, you're winding me up.
Michael Lucas with Stephen Peacocke for the Emsolation Summer Series.
All right, welcome to the Emsolation Summer Series. Clearly, it is not Em, it is Michael, finally making some sort of contribution. I'm not a maximalist power queen. Only one person can take that token. So, yes, I'm a writer. I'm a noted podcaster. I'm going to say sidekick, but I'm going to say it with real pride because sidekicks are just my favourite characters in movies. And I'm also an absolutely appalling singer, as everyone who watched the Emsolation Christmas special probably is having some therapy to try and remove that memory. I'm so thrilled that I'm here because I'm interviewing Aussie legend Stephen Peacocke, who I'm sure, look, he doesn't need much introduction because we speak about him a fair bit anyway. And basically, look, if you were living in Australia in 2011 to 2016, then you'd know even if you didn't watch Home and Away, you would know he played Brax, the river boy, on that show. He was on the cover of TV Week. Basically, I feel like they just rotated him. Every third week it had to be him. Yeah, it was such a popular character. But then this past pandemic year in 2021, if you're a Stephen Peacocke fan, my God, it was particularly the month of August. Melbourne and Sydney had gone into lockdown, and in 1 week, he released RFDS, the Channel 7 Royal Flying Doctor drama, where he starred as a flight nurse, Pete. And then on that exact same day, 5 Bedroom Season 2 came out, where he played the character of tradie Ben. And then on that Sunday, the Newsreader came out, where he played sports reporter Rob Rickards, and for that role he got an acting nomination. So it's just been this absolutely huge year for Steve. And now, as we head into New Year's Day 2022, we're actually getting 5 Bedrooms Season 3, which is by far the biggest season yet for his character Ben. He kicks off the series with a contentious choice he makes that we get into. So yeah, it's just absolutely prime time for Stephen Peacocke. And Steve, look, I didn't know what to expect when we started working with him. None of us really did. Because, yeah, like obviously you look at him on screen and he seems like this salt-of-the-earth Aussie bloke. But also, you know, we were all like, yeah, but he's an actor and he's working in Hollywood. So, I mean, you know, obviously it's not real. But, it's real. It's real. Like, I feel like the phrase salt of the earth and phrases like true blue, they were just invented for Steve. Like, he's the only person I know of my age that can just naturally just throw around phrases like beauty and crikey. Like, he could actually pull out crikey as just an authentic response to something. It's amazing. I mean, and I always love to ask him what he's been up to because, you know, obviously I'm here living my Northcote wanker life, you know, spending too much money on pop concerts and going to cafes, and that's my life. And and he lives out in the bush, and his day-to-day life, it's like something out of an Aussie bush miniseries of the 1980s. It's incredible. He's just, I don't know. He's really humble. He's so gentlemanly and polite. And he's also a really great actor. It's really easy to underestimate him because his performances, they're always just so natural and laconic. You think it's not acting. But it is. And there's masses of detail there, and he's always super well prepared. And then as we worked on the show, like I think everyone has this different moment that they all of a sudden they just realise, oh my God, I think I've fallen in love with Stephen Peacocke, all of us. And I remember for me, there was this moment, and he was just talking about his wife, Bridget, who is just beautiful. He's been married, God, I don't know, like almost a decade now, and he's just so devoted to her. And they obviously talk through everything all the time because he's always referring to her thoughts on things. And then I just remember there's this one point where he just sort of said, "Oh, Bridge, yeah, we're married, obviously, she's my wife, but she's also my best friend." And he just said it so humbly and simply, and then moved on in conversation. And I was like, oh my God, you are like, you give straight white Aussie men a good name. Really. And then, ever since then, just unfailingly generous. And I feel like it's a bit of a coup that he's doing this because he keeps a pretty low profile. Like, you won't catch him out on a red carpet. We did get him out for the Newsreader at the Actors, but that's only because he was like literally nominated and asked to present. Other than that, he doesn't go to opening of things. He's not on any social media. He lives way out of the city in the country. And you know, you won't even, like, it's not like he's someone that pops up on the project or on Brekkie Telly or anything like that. And frankly, I feel like he's really just doing this because, I mean, you know, I am the writer and producer of 2 of the shows he works on, so how could he really say no to me? It's a bit orcs. So, yeah, we got him. I feel like I should say a blanket apology to M, because as with our other interviews with Asher at Keddy and Kat Stewart, again, I prepared. Notably, I'm not great on the preparation in day-to-day. And then, as she correctly identifies, when I bring in someone from one of my shows, I get nervous and over-prepared. But in this instance, I did have all of these things, but he was just in this great chatty mood and super relaxed. And he was calling in from Dubbo. And so, I mean, I could see behind him, and it was just, you know, unbelievable, beautiful red earth outback. Just how you imagine Steve Peacocke is going to be. But I'm here to tell you, it's not, it's real. It's the real deal. And I think you'll hear that in this interview. So, as Em would say, play the music.
You're listening to the Emsolation Summer Series.
Here we are. Now, the first thing, last time I saw you was only about a week and a bit ago at the Opera House at the Actor Awards. And one of the things I always love to hear whenever we're not in production is just what you've been up to recently, because my answers are always just such inner city wanker things, like going to cafes and museums. And in the past, you've answered things like defending the property against the fire front. And at one point, it was like planting 180 trees or something. That was another answer. What have you been doing since the Actors?
Going to the chiropractor to repair my back from planting the damn trees. I've been doubled over with a bulging disc in my back. So yeah, no adventurous stories.
Oh no!
No, actually, hang on. Right before the Actors, I was out. I actually went out to between Burke and Louth in far northwestern New South Wales to the place I jackarooed on when I was 18. So I did a camping trip out there on the Darling River with the bloke I actually jackarooed with. That was pretty fun. But that is about it, mate. Nothing too exciting other than that.
Look, that's pretty exciting. You've already thrown around the word jackaroo. Well, actually, so what I've done, I'm a bit over-prepared. And what I've done is I've got 10 Steve Peacocke facts, which actually I'm not even 100% sure that all of them are facts, but what I'm going to do is just run through them and you can separate the myth from the reality. But intriguingly, it was my second one, but I'm bumping it up to number 1. Out of all of the facts that I learned, this is one of the most fascinating ones. Before acting took off, you literally worked as a jackaroo on a cattle station and you're earning $3 an hour. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, I was 18. It was my first year out of school, and it was a sheep and cattle station out called Terrally Station out past Burke, and I was out there for 12 months. And look, the manager of that place was a wonderful fella. He read on Wikipedia. He said, "You said you're making $3 an hour," which I think I was. Maybe I've neglected to say is we did get a house and food and essentials like that thrown in. So it was probably more like $8.50 an hour if you adjusted for inflation.
Now, jackaroo, like, does that mean that are you on horseback? Is that what that is?
Look, in days
everything.
gone by, it would have been horseback mainly, and certainly if you're up in the Northern Territory or, you know, in Western Australia, you might still be on horseback. But because the place I was on was, it was almost 250,000 acres big, and it was just more efficient to ride motorbikes. So,
wow.
yeah, it was all done, all the mustering out there, because there are about 40,000 sheep and about 10,000 cattle. And all the mustering out there was done with an aeroplane. So a bloke would be up in the sky sort of spotting the mobs of sheep, and you'd be down, 2 or 3 blokes would be down mustering on using motorbikes, sort of herding all the sheep together. So, yeah, it wasn't as romantic as riding a horse, but yeah, it was all mostly motorbikes.
See, the other thing that's confusing about Wikipedia is it sort of lists it as a job that you did while you were breaking into acting. And I was thinking, how did he go to auditions? What the hell? How did he manage that? But no, it was quite specifically the year after high school.
It was specifically then. I'd never done acting at that point. Still, I didn't get into it until university, but I knew at that point that I wanted to be an actor. So there was a moment. It was my favourite film. The film that made me want to get into acting was the film Braveheart, which came out in 1995, I think. And for whatever reason, that was the first film that just clicked with me as a young man. And I did attempt the famous Sons of Scotland speech when I was riding my motorbike behind a mob of sort of 2,000 sheep. And there was no one around for, miles and miles and miles. So that was my first little foray into performance was probably out behind a mob of merino sheep.
Well, and they were your first devoted audience. I bet you killed it.
Well, the nature of mustering is the sheep run away from you. So they continued to run. So it wasn't exactly applause, but I guess it was some kind of reaction that they had to whatever the hell I was saying.
Well, that's what William Wallace, he wanted to inspire them to start running, right, towards the enemy. Isn't that right? Isn't that what he's doing that speech for?
100%.
We'll never take their freedom.
That's right. And I was literally leading those sheep off to their slaughter. No, I wasn't. I was leading them off to be shorn. So they were very happy sheep. But yeah, I think I may have pioneered a new way of mustering livestock. So
my second Stephen Peacocke incredible fact was, and you've kind of answered this too, but was it that when you were growing up, your 2 dreams were either rugby player or actor? And in the end, acting partially won because of injuries due to rugby playing. Is that true?
No, if I'm going to be honest, I loved playing rugby, but it was pretty clear from the age when I was a teenager that I was never going to set the world alight playing rugby. So it was something I played until I was 28. But no, it was when I was in year 9 or I think year 9 that I got this acting bug sort of bit me, even though it would be years before I actually got onto a stage. But that just became my dream and the thing I thought about more than anything, really. So it was in year 9. But yeah, rugby was always just a way to keep fit, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, because I'm going to say, it was sort of hard because they are they're really requiring different things. Because at the end of the day, when I think of acting, I think it's all about listening and vulnerability, really. And rugby is that's very different skill set, very different aim.
Yeah. It's more about, the weird thing is, I used to get this crippling anxiety before I played rugby. I'd have to, because we always, when I was playing at university and, the game I'd play in was always at 3:00, sort of the last game of the day. And I get so nervous for the whole day. I couldn't eat for the whole day leading up to it. And I'd be so, so nervous. But then I did this play when I was at university and I had broken my shoulder from rugby. So I thought I'd dabble. And the first performance I did, I actually started, it was a little 2-hander and I was sitting on a chair in the middle of the stage and the curtain sort of opened. And I remember sitting there going, well, you want to be an actor, this is the make or break moment. Either you're going to shoot yourself or it's going to be okay. And I remember feeling absolutely no nerves, which was bizarre.
Wow.
So I used to get more nervous before a game of footy than I did, as it turns out, before a very small audience at Newcastle University. There were probably, to be fair, 5 people in the audience, but yeah, it was strange.
I don't tend to get nervous, and yet when I was in school plays, I packed it. I couldn't sleep for nights leading up to it. So that's fascinating that you didn't get nervous at all.
That's weird. But then, we're at the Actors last week, and I think we're both saying that we're a little bit to get up in a situation like that still gives me heart palpitations. So I'm all right if you're writing my dialogue. If I could have Michael Lucas following me around to all my social engagements, writing what I've got to say, then I'd be all right. But I still get nervous about public speaking. But yeah, for whatever reason, on a set, touch wood.
Yeah.
And the limited theatre I've done, I never used to get too nervous. But how did you feel? You had to present. You were saying you felt a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was partially. I wasn't that nervous until I had to go to the rehearsal. And then for some reason, the rehearsal really made me think about what I was doing. And then I got nervous. And also because I don't know whether your rehearsal was the same, but looking out and seeing all the names that I was going to be speaking to on the chairs just suddenly made me nervous.
Yes,
just everything about that put me off, and just seeing all the cameras set up and everything. Yeah, definitely I did. But then in the end, when it finally came around, actually I just felt really, really sweaty, and so all I was really thinking was, am I sweating massively? And I was just consumed with that, and I couldn't really think about anything else. And also I was really lucky because before I presented, there was an absolute disaster with Marta Dusseldorf. Do you remember that, when they played the wrong thing and she was left stranded on stage for 10 minutes? And I was like, oh, well, whatever happens to me is not going to be as bad as that.
I know. That's now replaced my nightmare that I used to have of turning up to school with no gear on. Everyone's had, now I'm just going to have flashbacks. They handled it very well. But yeah, you're right. If that is often the case. If someone, even if you're doing a scene sometimes, it's a bit nasty to say, but if someone stuffs their line, then all of a sudden you go, oh, well, they've done it now. I won't look so much of a goose.
I know, it's terrible, isn't it? But it's true.
It's like a circuit breaker for the tension. But it was funny. Before I had to go up and present mine, and I didn't know the order of anything, but I think it was Eric Banner and Matt Nable had presented once. So when they walked off, I was bloody starstruck because it's Eric Banner and he's one of my favourite actors. And he was he made eye contact and said, "G'day, mate." And then Matt Nable was right behind him, and he sort of grabbed me in a half sort of footy tackle and said, "Just don't fuck it up, mate." Just as I was walking out. So I thought, there you go.
No, you didn't. You had great banter. You with Courtney Act. It was awesome. It was really well done.
Yeah. Courtney was good fun. She was great. So yeah. Anyway, that's my nerves on stage.
Michael Lucas with Stephen Peacocke for the Emsolation Summer Series.
And so when you're in Newcastle, and when you're on stage in Newcastle, was that with Johnny Carr?
Yes. Well, I think the first play that we did together was A Property of the Clan, which is obviously a Nick Enright play, was the precursor to Black Rock, the film and play. And, a famous Newcastle story set on Stockton Beach. And yeah, I was playing Rico. I can't remember who Johnny was playing. But anyway,
well,
we were in
I just need to,
together.
let me just explain to listeners, because they probably know Johnny Carr better as Simo. So in 5 Bedrooms, Steve's, or his character's Ben's best mate is Simo. And as it turns out, we cast this actor, Johnny Carr, who in reality was at Newcastle Uni, and did the drama course with you there and then appeared with you on stage. But to be clear, we had no idea that there was any connection whatsoever. And in fact, I had just seen Johnny on stage in Melbourne at the MTC and just loved him. And so that's why he got considered for that role and got it. And then happy accident rocked up and he had this whole history with you that goes all the way back to teen years. Amazing.
Yeah, early 20s. It would have been more, 19 or 20. But yeah, it was wonderful because we had to have this backstory, Benny and Simo of being lifelong mates, and we could literally trace a friendship back almost 2 decades. The weird thing was because I had come from this completely different background to acting, and I was studying a unit of drama or something, but otherwise I was doing a completely different degree. And I think Johnny may have been the same. But we turned up to this play and audition, and then worked out that we were sort of both had similar interests, and we both sort of weren't within that sort of Rocker Stedford at school type crowd, and so we hit it off together really well. So it was a really good fun crowd to be in. But yeah, we kind of became mates because we were kind of both outsiders in that little world. And then he went off to VCA. I think he auditioned for VCA and got in, and I went off to start unloading freight trucks in Sydney for 5 years until I got a break. But yeah, it was so cool when I saw that he was auditioning for Simo. I think Pete Templeman may have even been in one of the auditions, and I said that may have been one of the first times. I said, we were mates years ago, and obviously he knocked it out of the park. in his audition, but I think it helped that we had a history there. So it was opportune.
Yeah, and that exact thing that might have made you slightly black sheeps in the acting class, which was, I mean, you're both playing tradies, and it feels incredibly authentic with you both. So it doesn't seem at all like actors playing tradies, which is part of the magic of it.
Yeah, I know. It was. I just, it's like working with Doris. Majority of my scenes are with Doris, and now in this season that the audience is about to see, so many of them with Johnny, and we all have a really good time on set. But when you're working with people who have got similar sense of humour and that sort of chemistry, just turning up to set is so much fun. So it's good fun working with Johnny.
Johnny, well, it was only a pretty small little guesty role really in season 1, but we loved him so much, and his scenes with you were so good. So season by season, he's got bigger, and now he's just pretty much he is main cast. Like he's just and this season he actually moves into the house. So it's really 6 people in the house now. Yeah, there's some of the best scenes for sure, and especially good because you don't often see entertaining and truthful and great male friendships on screen. There's not a huge number of them that I can think of off the top of my head, but they're awesome together. Or you're awesome together with him.
Yeah, no, they're good fun. Very good fun.
So that break you referred to after the loading the freight was Brax in Home and Away, which basically if you're living in Australia in the first half, like from about 2011 to about 2015, 16?
Yeah, I can never remember. I think it was around then. I think I was turned 29. So that would be about right. Yeah.
I mean, he's absolute Home and Away Hall of Fame, and I know that. I mean, obviously, you've got your Elf and your Irene, and because they've been there decades, and Sally, people like that. But in terms of like a short stay, he's pretty much, I would go so far as to say, almost mathematically, empirically, the most popular Home and Away character probably ever. That's my read on it, not Steve's. Even like now, and even on 5 Bedrooms, or especially when we started, there's just something about that character. Like he was so popular, and if you were to go into a pub or something like that, people would just want to come up for selfies and to say hi and get a picture and refer to you as Brax, right?
Yes, it was a period there where, for whatever reason, that character did become popular. And I think because, if your name was Sam or Mike or any other regular sounding names, or Steve, if someone yelled out in public and you didn't feel like sort of having a photo or something, you could just keep walking because there could be another Mike or Steve.
Yeah.
But if someone yells out Brax, there is no one else with that damn name. So I'd either wince and I'd give myself away, and I'd have to turn around and say good day or whatever, which is always fine. But sometimes, you're in a rush. I think the reason I noticed it even more in public is because that name there's just not that many people. Well, there weren't that many people called Brax when I was on TV. It turns out, I remember Mum.
I think he's the one and only. Oh, yeah. Did have someone ring up?
But I remember Mum, because Mum used to be a kindergarten teacher, and kids would come through and you could tell whatever the popular characters on a TV show were, because all the girls would be called this or all the boys would be called that. And she rang up and said, it's in the paper that Brax was like the number 2 most popular name in Australia for 1 year when I was on. So those little kids, called Brax and Braxton.
Well, that wasn't, his name was Daryl, actually, wasn't it?
I used to say that. People would turn up to Palm Beach and say, this is little Braxton. He'd be dressed up in a flannelette shirt, and I'd go, it's good. Yeah, good on him. And, they're always lovely people, but I sometimes would want to say, his name's actually Daryl. It's not quite as cool sounding as Brax. Anyway, that was a very funny time for someone who'd gone from doing a few plays at the new theatre in the Old Fits to all of a sudden being on this show and having a character that was quite popular was quite bizarre.
Oh, yeah. And it was actually just before streaming started. So it was back when like free-to-air TV was kind of at its absolute peak. And Home and Away, it was like millions were watching every single night. And demonstrably, like Brax was a big draw. Like the seasons got bigger and bigger with him on it. So it's like these days, given how fragmented everything is and how many different streaming services there are, it's hard for a single character to get as much love as that did. And it was wild.
Oh, very lucky. Yeah, look, some people, I kind of get it. Some people, when they're reminded about being on that show or on Neighbours or whatever, probably get sick and tired of it after years and years. But I always think if you're lucky enough to play a character that has that kind of, finds that kind of, you have that sort of cut through and you become popular with an audience, then it's something to be proud of. And I loved every day of that show. It was so much fun. The people on it are fantastic. So, yeah, I learnt a lot doing the show, and it certainly helped me to sort of establish myself as someone who could show up on time and, you know.
Since then, okay, so I've forgotten how many acting legends you've acted opposite against, but some of them are Tina Fey, Margot Robbie, Emilia Clarke, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. You've actually acted with all of those people.
I know. Yeah. Well, to be fair, when it was with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, I was kind of leaning on a spear off his right shoulder for most of it. But I did have a few scenes. I actually broke my thumb. I didn't tell production at the time, but one of the first scenes I did with him, it was sort of this. It was going to be part of a montage, and he was, you know, this was in Hercules, and he was teaching us how to fight. And the director said, "Right, me, get up with one of the other actors, and he's going to show you how to do this move and or whatever." As you know, the general teaching the soldiers how to fight. And I fell down, and he felt my thumb sort of crack, but I didn't want to make a show in front of The Rock, so I just sort of went home and put some ice on it, and ended up with a bloody fractured thumb, which I ended up having to pay for because I didn't tell the production.
Oh my!
Anyway.
So how you still had to keep doing the job with a fractured thumb?
Yeah, I bought a brace. I was over in Budapest, and I remember walking into a pharmacy and said, "Look, I think my thumb's broken," and it was because I got an X-rayed. And I said, "What can you give me?" And they just gave me some brace. Anyway, it was fine. It was one of those funny moments. And then I had John Hurt. I got to act with Ian McShane.
Oh, wow.
They were all on that. Rufus Sewell. They were all on that set, and it was bizarre because the year before I'd been, you know, in Australia, and then all of a sudden I'd got this American agent, and then I got this role in Hercules, which is a whole other story, which I won't bore you with. But yeah, and then you're on set on this huge big MGM film set in Budapest with 2,000 extras, and it's crazy.
Yeah, a bit of a contrast.
It's just weird how quickly and you would know how quickly in this industry you can go from looking at your phone to all of a sudden just being in the middle of some huge thing. It's crazy. It's good fun.
And now, look, Tina Fey, she's both of our heroes. I mean, Mean Girls is one of the best screenplays just ever written. But in addition to that, obviously, amazing comic genius from Saturday Night Live. But you were working with her. She was just purely an actress, right, in Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. She wasn't a writer or anything on that movie, was she?
No, she wasn't. She was working alongside her really close writing partner. I can't think of his name. But she was producing, I think. So she had a bit of skin in the game of, you know, the way everything was running. But yeah, otherwise, I don't think she was writing. She was just there as an actor, and obviously was number one on the call sheet. And, you know, they're the standard bearers for any production I've since realised. And she was fantastic. You could not, if you're a Tina Fey fan, as you are and I certainly am, you could not hope for her to be a nicer, more modest, unassuming person. She was so fun to work with. And I was nervous there, actually, talking about nerves. Before, I remember walking to set behind her and Martin Freeman, who, like, The Office is my favourite show of all time. And one of my first scenes was with both of them. And I remember just being so nervous, going, "Gosh, don't stuff these up." But yeah, it was fantastic. She was great. I
guess if she was producing and stuff, she would have had sort of some form of casting say in you. Maybe. Did she? Did you have to do a chemistry test with her or anything?
No, I auditioned. Bizarrely, I did the first audition in Sydney, and then I was up visiting my brother in Darwin, and I had to do a Skype test from his house in Darwin with the director, and it was this horrible lag in the when you get that horrible lag. And I remember getting off and just going, well, that was just a bloke looking into his iPhone, trying to hear what the other person was saying. It was nothing to do with the performance. And I thought, well, I've blown that. There's no way I'll get it. And then I got it. So I think either it was the sort of Stephen Bradbury moment where a number of other people pulled out and they just said, "Get the idiot from Australia," or she saw me and said, "He's the next super." I don't think so.
No, it's odd how often friends I know, when they really think for some whatever reason they've screwed up an audition, they're the great ones. And conversely, sometimes when they come out going, "I really reckon I've got a good feeling about that one, I really reckon," often it doesn't pan out that way. But I remember Sarah Snook with Succession, when she only looked at the scene late, and the just character description was like Ivanka Trump or something, and she was like, I'm not that. This isn't going to work. And she was on a beach holiday or something, so she couldn't even get dressed up or anything. So she just kind of did this quick audition and thought, I'm never, ever, ever going to get that. And And then now, now she's like 4 years in. And
I know, and one of the most popular shows on television, or the most popular show now, and it will probably go down as one of the most popular shows ever. It's crazy.
Yeah, and she thought she blew it.
I remember going into Fox Studios at Sydney, the audition house, to do my audition for Ben in 5 bedrooms, and my wife, Bridge, she waited, and I remember getting out in the car going, fuck it. This is a character I should absolutely know. And the whole way home, just going, that's it. I'm going to if I can't do something that well written and that perfect for me, then bugger it. I'm going to quit. And it was one of those moments where I'd rehearsed it with her and it all felt good. And then I just felt like the wheels fell off when I went in there. But, it's like you say, the ones you think you've absolutely hit for 6, you'd never hear back from. And when you think you've been not your best, you often get them. And the weird thing is sometimes when we're on set, the scenes where you walk away and you think, that now I know what I'm doing. Like, we're really firing on all cylinders. You'll watch them back and, they won't be your favourites. And the ones where you felt terrible, you came home and sort of, God, what am I doing in this job? They're the ones that turn out the best. So I think I've just learned not to trust my own judgment of when I'm doing something well. Listen to other people.
Look, I wouldn't entirely ignore it, although listening to other people is good. But I vividly remember that test. And I also remember, this probably sounds a little bit unprofessional, but when we're considering casting someone, often I'll show Em and my mum. Yeah. Because sometimes it's just really good to just, I don't know, play the scene to someone who's not, in the weeds with it or something like that, just to get an instant gut reaction. And particularly if it's like sort of like a male romantic lead as well. And I still remember they both had the exact point. There was this particular point where you weren't actually auditioning with Doris, but it was a scene that she was going to play. And there was this particular point where you smiled and both my mum and Em watching it separately went, oh yeah, no, yeah. Got it.
I think all I've got to do now is work out a way to get your mum and Em into the casting studios of Paramount Pictures and get them over to America and get them in the ears of the casting people. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. My mum's pretty huge fan. It was not her era of Home and Away, so you're fresh to her pretty much for 5 bedrooms. She's been pretty devastated, actually, because of the pandemic. She's been waiting for so long for a set visit and it's never happened. Yeah.
I hope Benny doesn't disappoint her.
No, well, so anyway, that brings up, so season 3, Christine, who writes that, and myself, we basically shat ourselves for about 6 months because we were worried that you might hate Ben's storyline. The reason we were worried is because there was this one time at the end of one of the Melbourne's lockdowns where we went to dinner with Doris, who plays Heather, and Kat was there. And I went in saying, I'm not going to say anything about the storylines. But then, of course, I had like 3 drinks and all of a sudden I was spilling everything. And for season 3, we're not giving anything away because it's been pretty much in the trailer. But let's just say that Ben makes a morally ambiguous choice that kicks off the whole season. I remember pitching it and around the table they all went, and then Kat sort of looked at me and said, does Steve know? And I went, no, we haven't told him. And she went, oh, okay, I'll be interested. And so from then on, we basically stressed for 6 months thinking, wow, what if he's got a real big problem with it? And then we had these endless discussions about, should we forewarn him or should we just send it cold? And then in the end, we decided it's better to just send the script because then he can read it in context. If he just hears the headline, it might prejudice. But then it was the biggest non-event ever. You just read and said, great, up for it. Great.
Yeah, I know. Well, I've been lucky to work with some good people. And I always just think, look, that's not my lane to be running in. If you've got good people writing and they've got this good idea for an overarching storyline, and, there are some things, to be fair, that auditions where I've said, I can't play that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to show up to work. Acting's hard enough already, but playing a character or doing something that you don't want to be doing, it's just not what I want to do. So I am a little bit like that with auditions and stuff that I'll go for. But when with you and Christine, I know that everything's turned out so well and the audience is always, you can always understand why the characters on our show do what they do. And I figured that he's doing something that's pretty big, no doubt about it. But it's certainly, you see how he's got himself into that situation. And knowing the type of free-spirited person he is leading up to it, you can see how things happen. And it made sense to me. So I thought, go with it. It'll be fun. And, you couldn't have him being too bloody, too sort of, not squeaky clean. He's never squeaky clean, but, he's always sort of turning up on the right side of things. It was good to see the wheels really fall off for him because, and there's, acting wise, they're great because it gives you something to fight back, to sort of play against, to try and win back people's affection, or, you know, to hope that the audience will see it from your point of view. And it was all in the writing. So
would you say it was more or less of an acting challenge than the dance sequences in season 1?
Oh, come on, mate. You're winding me up. Yeah. For people who don't know, Mike, he comes across as such a nice fella, but it's a sword hanging over my head each time I turn up that he's either going to have me dancing or bloody maybe even no, there's no more nudity.
No, there's no more nudity. No, but the dancing. So season 1, the scripts, the first half of the series was already written, and there were these 2 big dance sequences. There's one dance sequence where you had to imitate Maddie Ziegler from the Chandelier video clip, and another one that was like a full, like, seducing Doris Yanane whilst doing house cleaning. And they were already in the scripts. So he had no choice. See, in my narrative at the end, because you were really lovely at the end when you finally saw the show, you said, look, I just want you to know that, you know, if you think dancing is what you should be doing, then I will do it, because I can see that it worked out well. Although, weirdly, we've never done it since then. I don't know why. No. Good reminder that we should think about a way.
Well, I almost put my foot in it the other day on set when I said, when Johnny and I were sitting around between scenes or whatever, joking that Benny and Simo had an old covers band.
Yeah, I know that was an unbelievable unforced error on your part, because all actors have to be careful what they reveal to me, because it'll end up in the script, and you don't, like Kat Stewart once said she had a really, really embarrassingly bad run, and then I just make her run all the time now, and then Steve, apparently with, you know, nervous about doing any kind of musical sequences for some reason in a show that, I just want to say, actively we do flashbacks, we really do flashbacks. He actually says in our backstory they had a bad cover band. I mean, what were you thinking I was going to do? I haven't picked up on it yet, but one day.
Why did I remind you? Foolishly.
Why did you remind me? Because I don't think you've been recorded singing on screen yet. So
for good reason. I can sing A Boy Named Sue, because that's basically a spoken word Johnny Cash song. But outside of that, anything where you got to keep a rhythm or harmony, I sound pretty terrible. But
so do I. I'm absolutely awful. But that doesn't stop me, whereas it does wisely stop you.
Yes. Yeah. No, I've been very, very careful to avoid any kind of karaoke parties or anything like that. But anyway, I'll leave it with you, Mike. I'll leave it to your better
Thank
judgment. You haven't let me down so far.
All right. So do you know that the cast and crew of 5 Bedrooms, led by Kat Stewart, have been known to refer you as a unicorn? Are you aware of that?
No.
If it's ringing a bell once the character then. No, the reason with that was because you'd worked mostly in Sydney, or all in Sydney, I would say, and then LA, and it was mostly a Melbourne-based production. So with a couple of notable exceptions, Pete Templeman, the director, had worked with you, and obviously Johnny Carr had, but your unknown quantity. And then, in all honesty, we just could not believe how humble and sort of low maintenance, no ego. We just couldn't. It just didn't make any sense to us how you could have like been Brax on Home and Away and win all those Logies, and then go to the Hollywood films, and it just didn't make any sense. And Kat Stewart was one of the first to call it, going, "He's a unicorn. He's a unicorn." Still to this day doesn't make any sense. Although I've got solid theories on what it is. And I think,
okay, come on.
Firstly, there's just like biological, like some people are just naturally more humble. And I reckon I think you might have an older brother as well. Is that right?
Yeah, correct, yes.
Country older brother, that'll keep you humble. But I reckon my number one theory, apart from all of the above, is, and it's something that a few of us have this on the show, like Christine, who writes it, and me, and Peter Templeman, and Kat Stewart, which is didn't really get any career success in the chosen field until around 30. So a lot of the 20s spent in sort of severe anxiety about whether you were good enough to go ahead. And once you've logged up a solid decade feeling that way, then you never truly can. You just can't become too much of an egotistical asshole. Not that you would anyway.
No. I think all the reasons you're pretty bang on for all those reasons. I'd be cut down very, very quickly if I showed any kind of ego at home or amongst my mates. But I think you're right. Yeah. Until age 28, I was sweating over every damn paycheck I got and bill because I didn't know. I moved out of home when I was 18. I was always paying rent all through uni, all through up until I got that job. And I remember Dad saying, because he's pretty old school, my dad, and he said, have a go at this acting thing, but if you haven't made it, haven't got, had any success by 30, then you have to rethink it, And,
I had the exact same date, 30.
Oh, really?
And
30.
it was for me. I got Offspring at 30. It was that exact year that it happened. And it's also just working, like watching all your friends start to, get proper jobs and actually earn money and buy houses and stuff. And for me, it was hospitality. And I was just still waiting tables. Not that there's, like, obviously that's brilliant if you're into hospitality, but I was bad at hospitality. And I was always like, you just couldn't even trust me to take an order. So I was pretty much just clearing plates. And still to this day, I will never, I'm still really conscious of every time I'm at a restaurant or a cafe. Yeah, it's very easy for me to put myself in the shoes of any person that's serving me or anything like that.
Totally. I think that you're bang on. If it's taking you a while to get there, you just do not take for granted how good it is. I remember one of the first things when I got the home and away job, I had to go in and get a haircut and do a wardrobe fitting. And I remember seeing the week after that my agent sent through the, pay slip or whatever, and it said I'd been paid, I don't know, $100 or something to go. And I said, I just got paid to get a haircut. And I was unloading shipping containers at that time. And the money I had been paid to go in and get a haircut was more than it was for a 70-foot shipping container. And I just thought, right, I can't let this go. I can't tell anyone about this job because it's like a dream. You're getting paid to get your haircut. And I don't think that's ever left me. You just think when you're on a film set and, there's food there at lunch and you're working with everyone. It's like this perfectly working, intricate. It's like they're watching the inside of a clock working. Everything's working in unison, and everyone, the sets I've worked on, at least, especially in Australia, there's just enough of people taking the piss for it to be fun and good fun. Everyone is super on the ball and knows their stuff, and it's such a fun working environment. I would just hate to think that I'd ever be someone who took it for granted or looked like they didn't feel very, very lucky to be there. So yeah, I think you're right. If you've sweated for long enough, when you get a good gig, you sort of go, I'll just enjoy it while I'm here, because you never know, you never know when the next gig will be.
That's right. And the appeal of free food that someone else has paid for just will never go away.
That's so true. But you know me, I've got absolutely no off switch when with that catering. Most of the time I've got to put that awesome food into a lunchbox and take it home. Yeah. Just so after lunch I'm not like the python who's just swallowed the whole elk flying there.
There's no continuity in the scenes because it's like, what? How's he gained 5 kilos in between this moment and that?
And he's off hibernating under a tree.
I have no self-control because I don't have to appear on camera. So when I come to set, I just can't not have the desserts and everything like that. So you can visibly track me as the season goes on. Kat Stewart's given me some good tips for how to manage it.
Actually, I'll have to talk to Kat.
Well, she just says the breakfasts. Don't do the breakfasts because that's where you really put yourself on the wrong course for the day because there's just piles of bacon and hash brown. And it's just really easy. And also you're a bit tired. It's always early. So, yeah.
Good point. Good tip. Thanks, Kat. She could have told me that 3 years ago.
No, you're very disciplined. You barely ate. You went through a period of time where you sort of barely ate anything on set. And then I have noticed recently there's a little bit more likely to have some lunch.
When they bring out the lamb chops, someone told them that that's my kryptonite. But yeah, I for whatever reason I work better on an empty stomach. But I told you, sheepdogs will work better on an empty stomach. Some blokes, will just lay off the food if there's a lot of yard work to be done. They'll just lay off the food the day before because they work better when they're a bit hungry. Yeah. And I would liken myself to a
sheepdog,
a fair to middling Kelpie dog, not a brilliant one, but one that can get the job done.
Oh, well, that's the most perfect note to end the interview on. I can't believe you brought it back to another just unbelievable trademark Steve Peacocke observation that I would never be able to make. So thank you. And hopefully I'll see you in 2022. I mean, it's going to be 2021 is, for the Stephen Peacocke fan, going to be, particularly August 2021 was so wild when you had RFDS and 5 Bedrooms and Newsreader all come out. But fingers crossed, I'm sure there's going to be further peaks to come. But that was an extraordinary moment, especially with Sydney and Melbourne in lockdown. It was like you were personally entertaining the nation.
I know. I won't put anyone through that again. I don't think. But, look, Mum and Dad loved it.
So did my mum.
Mum and Dad had seen me in probably 10 years because every time they turned on the telly, it was my mug. Yeah. But, well, listen, mate. Thank you for writing all the bloody good words for me to say. I don't want to I don't want to undersell what I do too much, but I seriously think if you and Christine write the words and, you turn up with the directors we've got, it's basically just not tripping over stuff. And I look half decent. So thank you, mate.
Oh, no, our pleasure. You're very welcome. And hopefully there'll be heaps more to come.
Hopefully.
All right. Well, thank you again and see you in next year.
See you in 2022, mate. Have a great Christmas. And yeah, thanks for the yarn.
Brilliant.
This is Emsolation. How good was that? Hello there, it's Benjamin Wasley again, the executive producer of Emsolation with Em Rossiano. I'm sitting in a rather echoey room. I haven't got a blanket over me. I'm visiting my parents in Adelaide, basically, and she doesn't need to take the time out to do these closes. I've jumped in to do them for her so she can have a bit of a break. That's what this summer series is all about. How good was Michael Lucas's chat with Mr. Stephen Peacocke? My God, what an amazing fella. A true and utter unicorn, now that you know what that means. Still to come on Thursday, Em will be back chatting with Melissa Leong from Masterchef. That is an amazing conversation. You cannot miss it. So much insight, and it's such an extensive conversation as well. Make sure you're tuning in on Thursday to check that out, and of course there'll be more in coming weeks on Thursdays as well, and we will remind you, I'm having trouble talking, that you can also now rate Emsolation with Em Rossiano on Spotify. So if you are yet to do that, we would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating. All you need to do is go to the Emsolation page on Spotify and click the 3 dots, which will bring up Rate This Show, and then you can put in your 5 stars. That would be fabulous. In the meantime, stand by for Melissa Leong from Masterchef with Em Rossiano this Thursday. And in the meantime, have a wonderful day. Emsolation with Em Rossiano is a Spotify exclusive podcast hosted by Em Rossiano with Michael Lucas. Executive produced by Benjamin Wasley. Produced by Em Rossiano. Edited by Ezekiel Fan at Entente Music. With videos by Liam O'Brien. Socials by Marcella Rossiano Barrow. With assistance from Jem Evans and Georgia Watts. Plus occasional technical wizardry, wine and coffee from Emstad Vinci. Get more Emsolation by following the Emsolation podcast on Instagram, where you can also sign up for our weekly newsletter. You can join other Emsolators at the Emsolation group on Facebook. The answer is Harry Styles. If you love what we do, share this podcast with a friend and make sure you're following us on the Spotify app. Thanks for taking time out to listen to this week's episode, and we look forward to chatting with you again soon.